Infectious disease expert Professor Dale Fisher is fighting the COVID-19 pandemic on the front line. As senior consultant at Singapore's National University Hospital, the Tasmanian-born professor is a key figure in advising the World Health Organization.
Singapore has been held up as a model country. They've been winning praise for controlling the spread, thus resulting in much lower infection rates compared to the rest of the world. So what can we learn from their example? And live via Skype, Professor Dale Fisher joins us from Singapore. Professor, thank you for taking the time. We know how busy you are. We know you're working right around the clock. I want to ask you what measures Singapore has been adopting since news of the virus broke back in December.
Thanks. You talk about back in December, that's exactly right. The first time the world heard about it outside of China was December 31st. And we were having meetings on January the 1st about starting to look out for people from Wuhan. And within weeks, we were really ramping up. We had testing available before our first kit, and January and through February was really a ramping up exercise, because we had a lot of respect for what was happening in China, and any disease that can make a country of 1.4 billion people close down told us that there was a serious thing coming.
Your approach to this crisis has been applauded by many key figures in this fight right around the world. How successful have these measures been in combating the spread of the disease? And can you perhaps detail some of those which have worked better in comparison to some other parts of the world?
Yeah, we're certainly not celebrating in the past tense. You know, we've won, we've had success, but we would say so far so good. We've concentrated heavily on the virus rather than population measures. Of course, the population measures are important, but they're really the second level of defence. The first level of defence is identifying the cases. So, you know, very liberal testing, which we've had pretty much from the outset once it was ramped up in late January. And we're quite strict with the cases. They're all isolated. They're taken out of community. And until recently, were kept in hospital, but now we've moved to hotels and a private hospital and a community hospital, which is where we're going to keep the positive cases until they're cleared with 2 negative throat swabs. Quarantining of contacts, very thorough contact tracing, and any close contacts are put in quarantine, and breaching quarantine is a criminal offence. So that's not to say we want to punish people criminally, but it's to say this is very serious and you're strongly recommended not to breach. So it's really that focus on the virus. That's where the money is. That's the cases. That's the close contacts. And if we can do that with the solid sort of contact tracing around every case, we've managed so far to shut down every transmission chain. Wow. And therefore allow life to continue fairly much normal, adapted but normal.
Dale, one of the big things that the PM, Scott Morrison, has said is that he's looking to Singapore and he's considering the Trace Together phone app that you implemented. Can you tell us how that works?
So there's a couple. When I came back from the WHO mission to China, I was put in quarantine, and the first morning I received an SMS where I had to click on a link, and that was to confirm that I was at the address where I was, and then I got an immediate response saying thank you for your cooperation. And that happens every 2 or 3 days at random times. And it's also associated with potentially people knocking on your door to make sure you are with your phone. So yeah, the quarantine's taken really seriously, and as I say, I'm not sure if it'll be acceptable in many countries, but you know, I think there need to be harsh penalties, because you can see the effect this has on society if it's not taken seriously.
As a professional, I'm sure you'd be reluctant to comment on how other people are doing things, but as an Australian, I'm sure you have many loved ones that are here in this country in lockdown at the moment that I guess communicating with you the measures that we are going through. In your opinion, with that in mind, what should Australia be doing now? Should we be doing something differently?
So you're quite right with your first sentence. I'm not certainly going to sit here in a place where there's different challenges to what's being faced in Australia and other countries. I'm not going to point and say you should do this, because I don't even know that's right. But I do know the most important thing is to stop the people with the virus spreading it. It's a pretty simple principle, and that's the isolation and the contact tracing. If I know Australia's not isolating their positive cases, I know the countries that have had success, and that's China, Korea. Korea didn't even do a shutdown when it was having 900 cases a day, but it did isolate all its positive cases. Hong Kong, Taiwan, we all isolate our positive cases. If Australia can be sure that those people aren't spreading it, then it's the same effect. But you have to be really sure that those people aren't going out, they're not having visitors, their families not being exposed to the same contaminated household and taking it out. That to me is the biggest difference. But I'm not going to say I have no right to say anyone should do it differently. It's really about the principle.
Dal, the thing I think that we're all holding out for is for this to be over. What does the end look like? What will happen? When will we get there?
So there are two ways we could be lucky. One is the virus attenuates and becomes less severe or less transmissible. That is perhaps an act of God that would allow that to happen, and shouldn't be something we hold out for. The other way is if we get lucky, if we find there's a whole lot of asymptomatic transmission, and our antibody studies in the future will tell us that. But if we find that 10,000 cases means 100,000 exposed, that would be a blessing. But again, I'm not sure we're going to be lucky like that. Herd immunity, natural herd immunity, is just not an option. 25 million people in Australia. To get herd immunity, you'd need 15 million infections. So you can do the maths and realise that that's not acceptable. So my answer is it's going to be a vaccine or a treatment. And I would think it's going to be a vaccine in a year or two. And like you, Sarah, I really want it over too.
Yeah, we all do, don't we?
Well, Professor Dale Fisher, as we mentioned, this fight is far from over, but your work certainly is to be admired, and your opinions here today certainly valued. So we thank you very much for joining us on the Daily Edition.
Thanks, Sally and Ryan.
Thank you.
Now,